Okay, we're over here at this is the front of the engine. Obviously we've got the engine upside down. What we need to do is get this cap in here today. And in the opening of this video you will have seen me just cleaning up this, it's an aluminium block and it has these recesses which the cork gaskets go into, and then this has to go on there, in there, and it gets held down by two what they call cheese head screws. Now you would have noticed as well, and if you've ever done this before, these are a very tight fit. They're made quite dramatically oversized, and when I was cleaning it up, what I was trying to do was to get a slight bevel on the edges to try and hold this in, but as you can see it's still very tight. Now the other thing of course is this thing has to go in reasonably straight. I mean, one option might be to try and push it in this way. Well, in the end that actually worked, bringing it in from the side. You do have to watch out for these little tabs at the top here that they stick out the side, because they do get caught. So you just need to wheedle them in with the edge of a screwdriver, and that seems to work quite well. So as I said, these two what they call cheese head screws go in here. Yeah, they look like a round of cheese. I guess that's why they have that name. And obviously we'll give them a good tighten once this is in. I couldn't find any sort of torque setting for them. Obviously, with it being a screwdriver, a slot head, it's difficult to get a torque on them unless you've got that fitting for your torque wrench. But look, they just need to be tight. Obviously this thing will be held in by the sump. So really they're just there essentially to stop it from going side. Well, actually just to hold it in place, because of course the sump will bolt in there as well. So anyway, they don't need to be massively tight, but you also don't want them coming loose, I guess. So make them as tight as you can with a screwdriver, and that's about it. be sure, we use a wrench just to give it a little nip. There we go, and that's that job done. Now obviously you see the cork sticks up a little bit. That's fine. That's what, well, it's not necessarily what you want, but it's fine. Obviously when we get the gasket, the sump gasket in, that'll go over and hopefully that'll push those down. At the very least it'll compress them and that'll push them back into their slots, I guess, but that's fine. Right, so that's that job done. Right, now we're still on the bottom of the engine. The other job I've been wanting to do, I'm still not happy with these felt seals that run down the front here. So what I've done, just using a punch, I've just gently tapped those down as hard as I can, just with a piece of wood. I'll just show you. So just in all four corners, in each of the corners, a couple of taps at a time. And what that's done is it's pushed them down quite a way. And I'll just make sure that all the corners have gone down. Obviously that's a round punch, so. Now this is not ideal. This, I guess, really should have tried to compress these seals more before tightening up, and certainly before cutting them off. And I'm just going to have to hope that this now doesn't leak. But what we're now going to do is just try and force the offcuts in there to fill that gap. And hopefully that now will make a better seal all around, I hope. So this is obviously a remedial job. This isn't how you should be doing it. Just think we were a bit ambitious perhaps, or a bit too quick really when we decided to cut them off. Really we should have taken a little bit more time perhaps to push them further in and essentially compact them more. This is the problem with this, is you don't actually know how far down that's gone now. It's almost impossible to tell really. You just have to keep pushing, I guess, until it really won't go anymore. So if there's any one thing, or if there's just one thing I don't like about this engine, there's definitely this seal arrangement. It's terribly complex, definitely error prone, and frankly quite difficult to deal with. You can see the relative size between the felt and the hole. Now obviously that does compress quite a bit, but it's still quite challenging. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Waterhouse Forde. Well, again, it's been a couple of weeks since we last did a video, but yeah, life is busy, right? So today, Oscar, we finished off the couple of little bits on the bottom of the engine, so putting in the seals and putting that cap on. But the main part of the video today, I think we're going to service the oil filter, sorry, the oil pump. So what we'll do to start with, we'll pop the studs into the bottom of the engine just so that they're in and they're out of the way, and so we don't lose them. And then what we'll do is we'll strip down the oil pump and replace the rotor and clean it all. The main thing is to clean it all out, measure everything, make sure that it's not too badly worn, the body is not too badly worn, and replace the rotor and the shaft. And then put it all back together, and that should mean that the oil pump will give us a good oil pressure when we fire up the engine. So just another little step forward as we slowly move through the engine. Okay, any questions on that?
No.
No? Happy to get started?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to be working mostly at the vase because we need the vase to hold the pump body still whilst we're working with it. But unfortunately, that's not the best place to film. But anyway, we need the vase, so we'll do it there. Okay?
Yep.
Cool. Right, let's get started. Okay, so we've got 3 studs and 3 nuts, and they need to go in here, right? This is where the oil pump goes. Now, obviously, you see you've got 2 threads on there. You've got a fine thread and a coarse thread.
I think this is the fine.
No. So the coarse thread goes into the body. Okay.
Okay.
And the fine thread is for the nuts. Now, what we'll do to tighten them,
put 2 nuts on and then tighten the top.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we could put some Loctite on, and we probably should, because the last thing you want is your oil pump coming loose. Right, we're over at the vase now. This is the oil pump. It's had an initial clean, basically just without opening it and stripping it. Obviously, it was filthy, right? So we remember how dirty this engine was. Everything was just like tar, black tar, wasn't it? So I'm expecting when we get in here that there'll be a lot more cleaning to do. But essentially, the job is you can see these 4 bolts here. We're going to take those off. This bottom cover will come off. Inside here is a rotor, and the replacement rotor is, go on.
Part number is 8275001M9.
No.
What?
There's the number there. A45641. Okay?
Okay.
I don't know what that is. So that may be the original OEM part for Ferguson, but part number. Anyway, so yeah, and that comes with essentially a new rotor in it, which is all very nicely packed, and sealed, which is nice, which is good.
I'm guessing that sits in there?
Yeah, well, in the body here. And let me just open that up. There we go. So you've got the rotor itself and then the sleeve that it runs in. And basically this is how it works. Right, so it turns in there and it traps oil in each of the spaces, and it squeezes it out.
That's clever.
Yeah. So we'll just leave that to one side for now, so they can stay clean. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this pipe pulls out. Maybe not. I thought that just pulled out. Okay, well, we'll get the cover off and see.
Why does it rotate?
Well, it doesn't. Basically, you position it so that it's down in the oil, because this is the uptake, right? So the pickup, so this is where it picks up the oil from.
Okay.
If it was like that, then obviously it won't pick up oil. So you position it so it's down. But this whole thing is inside a filter shroud, filter cover, so you can't get it wrong anyway. Right, these bolts are what's that, a 7/16. Oh, they're not very tight. Okay, and then this cover should come off, which it does quite easily. Oh, now we can see we've got quite a bit of crud in there.
Ooh.
Which is again very similar to what we had in the sump, wasn't it?
Yeah, which makes sense because the sump has the oil.
Indeed.
I remember.
It also smells bad, really bad.
I remember poking a stick around in the sump and just watching the goo ooze.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not great, but anyway.
I'm probably not going to smell that.
Right, now, this rotor, this rotor should now come out, along with the
Nice and simple.
sleeve. It is very simple, yeah. And again, you see all the crud in there. It's really not good. But so yeah, we're not really going to be able to measure this one because it's, well, I suppose we can clean it up and measure it.
They look similar.
So the main thing we want to look for is on this top face. We're looking for undue wear on the face where the rotor is going to run against. We may have to give this a bath first before we can see the real condition of it. But what you want to do, this face, run your finger over there. You feel there's a slight ridge there in the center, which kind of makes sense, right? So the rotor has a round bit in it where it doesn't touch. And but what we want to make sure of is that there's no horrible grooving or anything on there. This one, if I can show the camera, so we've got the piece in the middle that's obviously higher than the rest of it. It's reasonably smooth. There's a bit of a ridge there, and then there's a bit of a step over here, just on the outer edge. Again, not surprising. The good thing is that it's not terrible, right? So it's not horrendous. And what we'll do is we'll take this pipe out. I need to remember how to do that. And what we're going to do is sand this, basically just hone it on some very fine sandpaper just to get that perfectly flat again, to help it seal. Because the problem is when the rotor's sitting on there and it's turning, it needs to seal the oil inside this space here. And obviously if there's grooves in that bottom face, then the oil pressure can escape, right? So we have to get that as smooth as possible. So that's the top face. Can't remember what this is called, but it's basically the outer sleeve that the rotor runs in. Obviously we're going to replace it anyway, but if you need to measure, there's basically three, I believe it's 3 tolerances we need to measure. Let me just get this a little bit cleaned up. As best we can. The first one is you don't want too much of a gap between the body of your pump and the sleeve. So basically the tolerance inside here, that can't be, I think it's over either 4 or 6 thou, if I remember correctly. I need to go and look this up. And then when you've got your rotor in there and it's all in the body because it needs to be in the shaft, the space between the rotor and the body on that edge there, again, you can measure that, and you need to measure that, or you can measure that, and again, there's a certain tolerance for that. Again, I think it's somewhere in the order of about 2 to 4 thou. When you're trying to turn it loose like this, it's actually difficult to turn because it's not 100% lined up. There you go, see there it's starting to go now. But essentially that's the motion. And that's like that, and it basically squeezes the oil. So it picks it up from this opening here, and there's a corresponding opening on the other side, but on the opposite side. So the opening is this side here, and the exit is that side there. So it picks it up here and squeezes it out there. If that makes sense. Can you just put that down and leave it, because I don't want that getting dirty. No, put it on the paper and wrap it up. Okay, so there's the body. I mean, it's obviously got water in it still from when we were cleaning, but you can see, hopefully you can see there, let me see what the camera's seeing. You can see a hole. So the big hole is obviously for the shaft, and then that one there is the exit. So that's where the oil pressure heads up there, comes out here, and basically heads off into the engine. It's real simple. It's not really much to this at all. So we're going to get this all cleaned up, and then we'll come back and reassemble it with the new rotor, and we'll also check the measurements, the tolerances, and I'll just show you how or where to measure for those as well. Okay, we have cleaned everything, given everything a really good bath, and one of the things we've done as well, we lapped this face, and then on the cover we also lapped that, so that there's now almost no, I didn't want to go any further. There's still a very slight high point in the middle, but I just didn't want to go any further, and obviously that doesn't actually matter, so that high point. So yeah, that's all nice and smooth now. As I say, I didn't want to go any further on that. But everything's been nicely cleaned. You see we took the pipe out. Basically just, it's a friction fit, so you just pull it out. And of course we'll put that back in a minute as well. Now I went and checked the clearance specifications. So Oscar, if you pass me the, hang on, let's just give this another little wipe in here. just to make sure. It's nice and clean. If you give me the outer rotor. Okay, so put a little bit of oil on this face, and that'll do. I'll just spread that around. Okay, and that slides in. Now, the interesting thing is, in the manual, there's no actual specification for the outer diameter. But what they say is that the internal diameter of the body is 1.601 inches, and the diameter of this outer rotor is 1.598. So if you do the maths, there's basically 0.3 of a thou between those two parts, which obviously we can't measure. So basically it needs to be a very, very good fit, and you can see I'm trying to, it does feel like there's a little bit of movement there, and to me that's more than it should be, but there's not much that we can do about that, unfortunately, besides replacing the body. Right, so now if we get the rotor, the inner rotor, and again we put a bit of oil on the shaft. And then pop that in. Turn it as you put it in.
Spread the oil, I guess.
Spread the oil. And put a little bit of oil in these recesses as well.
It won't hurt as it's an oil pump. That's where the oil goes.
Okay, now the manual talks about the clearance between the inner rotor and the outer rotor being between 4 and 10 thousandths. Now, it's obviously quite difficult to measure because all of these surfaces are curved, and obviously feeler gauges are not curved. So what I'm going to do is basically measure as close to that top edge as I can get. And you can see we can get a feeler gauge in there, 4 thou. But we can't get it, or can we? It would go in there if it was straight on that side. But on the front face, the actual where it's touching, again, I suppose you could actually get you would be able to get the feeler gauge in there if it was straight, but you can see that it has actually gone in. So there is at least 4 thou gap there. Now if we go, what's the next one we've got? The next one we've got is 5.
I don't recognise that feeler gauge.
I don't tend to use this one because the number 2 is broken and it always gets caught.
Okay.
But because this has got a finer nose, I thought we'd use it. So if we try and get a 5 in there, let's see if we can. So it'll go on the edge, obviously. If we try and push it, it won't. I mean, it'll go in, but you have to force it, basically, really hard. Now, I don't know how much of that is the curve and how much of that is the actual lack of clearance, but I'm going to say that that's good. I'm calling that good. Right, so apparently those are the only measurements you need to make. In my prior experience, you had to measure the outer clearance as well, but on this one, they don't actually mention it in the manual. Right, now, if like me you've forgotten which side the exit is, you can literally just have a look. So the exit is on this side, so we know that the inlet needs to be on the opposite side. So if we look at the cap, the inlet is here, so we know that that has to go that way. Okay. So, Oscar, if we put a little bit of oil on here just to lubricate everything. And actually, before we do that, I want to just try and do one other thing. If I just move this to the edge, make sure that the camera is still picking this up. Yeah. If we put a screwdriver up its bum and get into the slot, we can actually turn this, and you'll see, now you can see the action. So it's obviously picking up oil here, you see this opening here,
yeah.
And as it rotates, that oil is being compressed and it gets pushed out to the exit. Okay, and there you go. I suppose there's one other measurement we can do, which is there, where the star is reaching the pivot there. That would give us the same measurement, I guess, or the same tolerance. So let's see if we can get a 4 in there. Not really. That's interesting. That's well, what that means is that this pump is basically going to seal very tightly. It is turning freely, so there's no concern there with it being too tight. There's no issue there, and that means hopefully we'll have really good oil pressure. Right, let's get the cap on.
I thought that the rotor would work like this.
Well, what's happening to your shaft when you do that?
Oh yeah, it's moving about.
It can't, right? So that's why they have to make the outer rotor turn as well. Okay, so we've popped that in. I want to put a bit more oil in there, Oscar, please. Give me some more oil. Put it in there. Because again, this thing's not going to be doing anything for a while, yeah? So we want to make sure it's well lubricated. Right, let's pop the screws in. Now the interesting thing is there's no gasket on this, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you want your faces to be really well honed, so that it seals nicely. But also because obviously this is actually sitting in the oil sump, so if it leaks, it doesn't really matter, right? It's only going to leak into the sump.
It's only going to leak where it came from, so. But you would lose pressure. You would
lose a bit of pressure, and that's why we want those faces to be really well honed. Now the interesting thing is that this isn't actually a perfect fit on the body. There's to me it looks like it's wrong.
If we were to turn it around, would it look better? That's my question. Would it look better if we turned it around?
Well, hang on, before we do that, let's just take it over to the engine and see how it matches on the engine. Just hang on. Okay, just to be sure, we just checked on the engine, and that's definitely right. But the interesting thing is that it's kind of, I don't think the camera's picking it up. Let me bring it closer. You see here how there's it's not quite matching over here, and if you look underneath, there's a similar gap on this side. It's almost as if this was machined to be the other way, and then they realized, or somebody realized it was the wrong way, so they turned it back again. That's the way it looks. I mean, I don't know if that's what happened, but we both noticed it, and yeah. Anyway, so there we go. Right. So we'll tighten this down, and we want to try and do it reasonably evenly, because obviously these are machine faces inside here, but it's not like when tightening a head or anything silly like that, but we do want to do it as evenly as possible. and we noticed when we took it apart that these bolts weren't particularly tight. So there's no need to over tighten them or anything silly like that, but we'll give them a little nip each. Just check them. One thing you'll notice, Oscar, with these screws that have a slot in the top, if you try to put the spanner over the faces where the slots exit, you sometimes struggle to get the spanner over that. I can't do the others now, but so generally if you try and get it across two faces where the slots don't open, then often they'll be better. And that's basically because there'll be little burrs from that when they cut the slot.
Yeah.
The other option, of course, would be to take those burrs off, and that would neaten it up. Right, let's have the pickup pipe. So, final job really, pickup pipe. As I said, it's just a push fit. There is I don't know what that is. It's like some sort of clip on there, and that holds it in place essentially. But you know, basically that just pushes in. Let's turn this around so we can see what we're doing. And yeah, you just turn that in.
And done.
And that's it. And it's as simple as that. Now, we can do a little test here. If we position the pump like that. Oh, no, hang on, let's do it this way. And we'll turn the pickup pipe like that. Put some oil in there for me, please, Oscar. Quite a lot.
So do you want to like see it coming out?
Yeah.
It'll come out these holes before it does anything in the oil pump.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Right, now if we turn this.
Oh!
Okay, let's maybe turn it the wrong way.
Should I give it some more?
A little bit more.
I'm trying to keep up. I don't know if I'm...
There we go, see?
Yeah.
A lot of air in there, obviously, but...
We're
okay, stop
out,
now, stop.
Can I do some? Can I do some?
Not too much, because we do want to leave it sort of full if we can.
Pumping.
So there we can see, that's how your oil pump operates, basically.
That is
okay, leave it like that now. Okay, so we'll pop that into that paper that the rotor came in, actually, Oscar.
Okay.
We'll wrap it up in that and we'll get it into a bag. And that'll keep it safe whilst we carry on with the rest of the engine. So, if we...
Do you know, it feels like yesterday that we were starting and discussing the idea of a YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember it so well.
Okay, that's good. It feels like a long time ago for me. Alright, well listen, I think that's it for today, Oscar. We'll, obviously, the next job will be probably moving on to starting to get the front of the engine sorted out, so that's all the timing gears and all that good stuff. And then we'll probably move to getting the engine onto the tractor so that we can, well, we need to work out how we're going to get the flywheel on, because at the moment we won't get the flywheel on whilst it's sitting in the engine stand.
Yeah. So
we need to work that out. But for now, let's leave it there for this week. So hope that was educational for somebody. Hope that you enjoyed the video. As always, if you know of something that maybe a better way of doing what we've done, or if you feel that we've missed something or we could have done something differently. It's always good to hear everybody's ideas. Sometimes it's just that there's a different way of doing something. Doesn't mean that one way is better than the other, I guess, but obviously we're always interested to hear what people think and what other people's experiences are. So we look forward to seeing you all on the next video, and we thank you again for joining us. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers for now.
Bye.